What is up? I'm Sergeant Ballistic, but you guys can call me Brian. Thank you for checking out this video. Today I wanted to share with you guys a trip I recently got to go on, in which I went to MRRF. That's the Midwest RepRap Festival. It is a 3D printing festival that's just a celebration of like all things 3D printing. It's like part trade show, part swap meet, part meetup, part party. Just really cool events. As you know, I've been getting into 3D printing a lot, and I was able to travel to Maker Faire last September, and I wanted to keep it going this year and go to some events. So I was able to go, and I was also able to pick up a little bit of swag. So at the end of the video, I'm going to show you guys some of the stuff I picked up, and I want to share it with you guys. So we're going to do a little bit of a giveaway, so stay tuned for that, and let's get started. So as I mentioned, the Midwest RepRap Festival, it's considered the largest gathering of 3D printing enthusiasts in the entire world. It's held every year around the end of March in Goshen, Indiana this year. It's actually free admittance to anybody who wants to come. You can just sign up online, or I think you can show up the day of on Saturday and just walk around and see what's going on. So if you're ever in the area, definitely do that. I'll have links to more about the Midwest RepRap Festival in the description, as well as ERRF, or the East Coast RepRap Festival, which will be occurring in June, and it'll be the first year. So if you are on the East Coast, it's going to be in Maryland. You should definitely think about checking that out. Again, links in the description below. So me and my buddy Kyle, who I also work with, he's got a Prusa i3 Mark II, decided we were going to drive up there. It was a 9-hour drive, a little bit over 9 hours. I think we went through 4 states, you know, Virginia, where we started out in Blacksburg, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, and Indiana. It was a long drive, saw a lot of mountains and lots of farmland, and oddly enough, a lot of horse and buggies and tractors. We actually saw some cops chasing a cow down the road, but I couldn't catch that on film because I was like half asleep. So a few of you might not be exactly, you know, familiar with what RepRap is. It's kind of a movement and project started, I think, back in 2005 by Adrian Bowyer over in England, and it's the idea of having low-cost 3D printers that are widely available to, you know, the greater community of 3D printing enthusiasts, and those printers having the property of being able to print their own parts. So one of the most popular RepRap machines is the i3 Prusa by Joseph Prusa and Prusa Research. That machine kind of derives its lineage directly from the RepRap kind of movement, and it is a RepRap machine in itself, and that Prusa operates a giant farm of these MK2, MK3, and who knows what else machines that actively produce the plastic parts, which they then sell with their machines, and of course all their stuff is open source. But now that that's out of the way, I'll try to have links to kind of more about the RepRap scene in the description below. But MRRF is, you know, not exclusively limited to RepRap machines, but there were machines of all shapes, sizes, and prices there. It was really cool to see what different people were using. There were machines that people had custom built out of like piping and conduit. They were really inexpensive Chinese kits that people had, or ones that people had kind of designed in CAD and made themselves. There was a 3D printed machine that was like almost completely 3D printed. Even the extrusions were 3D printed. Just all sorts of machines. So that was really cool to see some machines I had never seen or heard of and stuff like that. So Kyle and I actually got there pretty early on Saturday, not long after the doors had opened, I think around 3 p.m. and we were able to get our own table. So we decided to set up our own printers and just kind of run prints and show off some of the stuff that we were printing. I had a Titanfall SMG, the car that I had 3D printed, and I was you know, just breaking away all of the support material and kind of filing things down. And it was really cool. People came around and kind of talked about it and, you know, told me what they were printing. There was another guy next to us who had 3D printed his own props. He had the Rat King from Destiny, which is a really cool gun I would like to 3D print. So MatterHackers, who I got to meet at Maker Faire New York, Mara Hittner and Dave Gaylord were there. and they had a little lounge set up in the corner, and that was definitely a hot spot where a lot of people were kind of hanging out around. They had tables and like a little sofa so you could sit down and take a load off and just talk about 3D printing, some of the stuff you had seen, what you were up to. I got to meet up with Joel Telling again, or 3D Printing Nerd. I had met him at Maker Faire in New York, and it was nice to talk to him about the stuff he was working on. I got to meet Tom Sanladerer in person for the first time. He's from over in Germany. He's got a very popular 3D printing YouTube channel as well. I got to meet up with Barnacules, Jerry, finally. I've talked to him online for a really, really long time. He and Jay's 2 Cents had me on Tech Talk like 4 years ago, I think it was. So it was really, really nice to meet him in person. So another person I was actually to meet up with, somewhat surprisingly, was Ben Heck of the Ben Heck Show. For those of you who are not familiar with him, he's somewhat of a kind of mixture of a DIYer and a hacker and a maker, and he does some really, really cool, particularly electronics inspired projects. Like he made a Xbox that had a open up display attached to it, kind of like hacked together himself. I know they make some like aftermarket parts for you to be able to do that, but he made it from scratch from like an old laptop and an Xbox 360. He's done several of those with different versions of different consoles. He does a lot of pinball machines. He does a lot of kinematics projects and things like that, and he reuses a lot of stuff like technology that would have been, you know, thrown away or stuff like that. So that was really, really cool. He was there. I believe he's from Wisconsin, and he just came over for the RepRap festival, and he was there, and he was actually designing a bag clip, and he needed a bag to test it on, and my buddy Kyle, who was there with me, actually had a bag of chips. So he came over and he tried his bag clip on our bag and made some iterations and kept coming over. He was a really, really fun guy. I got to talk to him about a couple of projects I'm working on, including my transparent LCD modification for my PC, and yeah, it was just really cool to get to meet him in person and bounce some ideas off of him and talk to him and party and hang out with him a little bit. So many other people that I can't mention everybody. Sorry if I forget you. I'll try to have links to as many people from the 3D printing community as possible in the description. But I got to meet a lot of people that I had already met in New York for New York Maker Faire, including Pooch from Repcord. He produces a brand of filament you guys might want to look at. You Do It was there. He was actually a sponsor, and he had a booth set up where he had a banner that had a huge number of people from the 3D printing YouTube communities, people that get together and share projects and collaborate and help cross promote each other's channels and stuff like that. So that was a really, really cool spot. MatterHackers were showing off their Build Series PLA, which I'll talk about in a bit, and they also had their Pulse, I think it's the FE machine. It's their machine that prints out nylon, and it's a custom machine that you can customize online, and the version they had there was specially designed to print nylon, so it had a special extruder on there and stuff like that. Really, really nice looking machine, was producing some really, really nice looking prints. So check that out if you're looking for, you know, just check out MatterHackers in general. They're a really, really cool company. They sponsor a lot of kind of projects for 3D printing enthusiasts. They put on a lot of events like at MRRF and meetups at Maker Faire and stuff like that. So definitely check them out. I definitely wanted to make sure I went past the Prusa Research booth. They were there, and of course Joe wanted to have something to show off, so they had their MMU V2, which is their multi-material upgrade version 2. They brought out the multi-material I think about 2 years ago for the MK2S, and they have the new version of it. It's upgraded and better. It will work with 5 materials now, and instead of having to have a motor for every single material, they're using this new kind of like barrel revolver clutch system, which will kind of have a rotating barrel which will engage one material at a time and then feed that down into a Bowden tube and down into the existing direct drive extruder on the MK2 or MK3. So gone will be the kind of 4-way splitter. So yeah, this is looking really, really cool and promising. It has kinematics built onto the actual thing in order to move the clutch system around and select the different ones. It's actually got, I think he said it has a blade on the inside, which will allow it to cut off filament if it's having a hard time unloading and reloading it. Sometimes when you have a filament that's getting melted and you pull it back up, it'll create like a little bit of a blob, and that can be hard to pull through a Bowden tube. So that was really cool to see. Next, I headed over to the E3D table. They were showing off some interesting stuff, their usual array of hot ends and nozzles. They also had some of their water cooled hot ends there, which is of particular interest to me since I'm into enthusiast level PCs and a little bit of water cooling and stuff like that as well. When you're printing in an enclosure that can get really hot, your hot end, you need to be able to control the temperature of it. That was very interesting to see. I'll try to kind of keep track of that because I just like water cooling and think it's really interesting. The other really cool thing they were showing off is their interchangeable toolhead system for 3D printers. So E3D being one of the most popular high-end kind of hot end manufacturers out there, they've got a wide range of different hot ends that you can use on your machine for different purposes. And a lot of times people who want to be able to print all those different types of things, flexibles maybe, they have a printer specifically to do each one. So in order to help with that, they're working on an open source standard for interchangeable tool heads that anybody will be able to use, and it will allow potentially one printer, in the case of the demo that they were showing, to have 4 different tool heads that it's able to just hot swap as needed throughout the print process. So in the example they had 4 different hot ends set up for different types of materials or different colors, like flexibles and just super strong like a nylon or something like that. And during the prints, as it's moving up in the layers and it's doing different sections of the print, it swaps the hot end and prints the new section, purges that and swaps the hot end again, and just keeps going on and on and on up through the layers. And it was really impressive to see. Sanjay does have a pretty long and exhaustive presentation about it, and I'll try to have that linked below. Somebody did record the whole thing and they live streamed it, so I'll try to link to that also. But it was really cool to hear him talk about it, all the work they had put into it. And one cool thing was that it's not limited to 3D printing necessarily for those print heads. Some things he mentioned were possibly having a laser engraver or laser cutter on one of the print heads, so you can do something like etch a part number when it was done, and be able to track that part, and if there was something wrong with it, you know immediately which part it was and what printer it came off of and stuff like that. He also mentioned the possibility of having a camera on one tool head where you can, during the process, you can go switch over that camera and every layer take a picture of what the layer looks like, and then stitch that together into a video or time lapse. It would also have kind of like a picture of every single layer, so if something went wrong, a part showed that it was like frayed or breaking or something like that, you can go back and look at the print process and possibly use something like artificial intelligence, like machine learning, to look at those pictures and know that maybe that part has something wrong with it. Another application I think he mentioned was a pick and place type tool head. That's when a print is done and maybe you cool down the bed, then the pick and place tool head can come pick up that part and put it in a bin, which can then get sorted into good parts and bad parts, or whatever part of the assembly. They said that they will be working with other companies like Lulzbot in order to make it an open standard that anybody can use, and you'll be able to take a Lulzbot tool head and prop it onto almost any printer that utilizes their standard. So they had that demo, of course, which was working. So they are developing kind of a printer kit that you can actually go on their website and pre-order. I think potentially they were talking about using a Tesla model where you put down like $100 and then they figure out how much it's going to cost and then tell you, and if you want to continue then you can put down the rest of the money or get your money back. And I think he said it's everything except for the electronics. So they really recommend the Duet system for its ability to do a bunch of like interesting macro tasks and scripting stuff that is needed in order to be able to swap the tool heads and do some of the other stuff that they want to be able to do. And I just found it really intriguing. I'm glad that they're kind of pushing the envelope of what we can do with desktop 3D printers at the moment. If you want to find out more about that printer and their stuff, I'll have links in the description, and hopefully they're able to move this forward and we'll see it kind of disseminates throughout the industry, and you'll be able to buy a 3D printer with that sometime down the road. Another pretty cool thing that was going on there was an OpenRC Formula 1 race car like little events that was sponsored by MatterHackers, and Daniel Noré, who designed the car. That's an open file that anybody can go and download, was there, which was really cool. And basically you were able to download the files and print them out, and then he has a list of standard components like motors and RC parts in order to make the car run in remote controlled. And so people downloaded those, kind of did their own liveries and customized styles and different color prints and stuff like that, and they all brought them, and they set up kind of a little oval track out in one of the kind of display areas, and that was a lot of fun. You know, not everybody there who was racing was RC race car enthusiasts, but they all love 3D printing, so they decided that they wanted to do it. And not everybody there was able to finish the race. A couple cars got damaged, there was some rubbing, there was some racing, and you know, when in doubt, people were just doing donuts and stuff like that. There were two guys there, we're gonna call them Shake and Bake because I forgot to get their names, but they definitely went the extra mile, and they did the full Ricky Bobby and Cal Junior liveries for their car. Just a really fun event. I kind of want to print out one of those cars now just to give it a shot. I kind of into drones at the moment, but I haven't done any RC car stuff since I was like 14, so you know, maybe that's an excuse to do it. I've got 2 printers now, probably going to be getting 2 or 3 more printers in the next, you know, 6 months, so I'll have plenty of printers. If you guys are interested in that, let me know, and maybe I'll print out an RC car. Kind of in tandem with that, Joel Telling, 3D printing nerd, who I mentioned getting to meet before, he actually has printed out a 4X version of that car using MatterHackers build PLA, and he actually assembled it there with the help of Daniel Noré, who designed it, so that was pretty cool to see. But he actually has plans to turn that into a fully working remote control car. I'm just really excited to see what he's able to do with it and how fast it'll go and how well it'll corner and all that kind of stuff. Another vendor at the event I made sure to stop by and talk to was Braden from Robo 3D. They had the R2 set up there, and that's a gorgeous looking 3D printer, I must say. They had a whole bunch of example prints there, and it looked to be printing really well. It's a little bit higher price points of a 3D printer compared to your lower end Chinese kits, but it looks great. It seems to print great. They've got an ecosystem they're trying to build around it, and he actually had the Mosaic Manufacturing Palette Plus hooked up to it, so it was doing multicolor prints. And that was really cool to see in person. It's this box that has a set of kinematics inside of it with, I think, an Arduino chip, and you slice up your prints like you would for like a Prusa multi-material printer, but instead of having 4 different materials being fed in to the head, it actually splices and connects the different color filaments, I think up to 4 or 5, into one feed. So you can essentially use that and get multicolor printing out of basically any 3D printer that you might own. So that was really cool to see. It had some great looking prints there, some ones that was like the inside of a cell, and one that looked like a castle in Winterfell or something like that. That was really cool. That printer looks phenomenal. I think you can buy it in some stores and on Amazon. I think MatterHackers actually has that. So definitely check that out if you're looking for somewhat more of a higher end printer. He did say that they're going to be coming out with kind of a enclosure that you might be able to buy to put on top of it aftermarket. And he also mentioned that they have a dual extrusion kits coming out. So that will be 2 heads on the printer, and you'll be able to upgrade, if you already have an R1, upgrade your R1 extruder. So that'll be pretty cool to see once they get that rolling out. You'll be able to do dual colors, of course, but also you can do like a PVA material with one extruder to do some soluble supports, and then you can have you know, your Palette Plus feeding into the other extruder, so you could still do stuff, you know, like the full color Palette Plus. So they will be having also some direct integration with Palette Plus. I think he said they're working on that, so that will be really cool to see what they have integrated there. Another cool thing I saw there, I don't know what else to call it besides the glitter SLS printer, and it was a printer that used SLS in order to center glitter into a 3D model. And it was actually a young man who had just graduated from Virginia Tech, which was cool because I live in Blacksburg and I went to Virginia Tech. And basically he had bought that printer at auction. It was an old printer, very expensive printer, and he bought it for a couple $100s, and he was able to convert it from using the jet that originally worked in it to a laser for SLS, and he bought like 50 pounds, I think he said, of glitter, and glitter is actually a microplastic and metal mixture, and because of that, the laser is able to center a cross section of a model, and then he's able to move the bed down and lay out more material, flatten it out, and then keep doing that until you have a model built in. He had to do a lot of different electronic conversions, write his own firmware, I think, and just do a lot of really ingenuitive stuff in order to get that working. And it worked really well. He was able to print out these little skulls with a lot of details that had some concave areas that would be basically impossible to do with traditional FDM prints and stuff like that. So SLS isn't really getting down to the prices yet where it's becoming as widely available as FDM. Forum Labs has an SLS printer, I think that's in the area of around like 10 grand or something like that, which before it was, you know, like hundreds of thousands of dollars for that type of technology. So it's coming down in price, but it was cool to see somebody taking the initiative to make their own SLS printer. And he had a Hokey bird that he had printed out, which was cool to see. And the prints are actually very fragile, so he had to actually encase them in like an epoxy in order to kind of preserve them. But yeah, it was really cool to see someone from Virginia Tech, a fellow Hokie, there, and kind of being really super ingenuitive. So one thing I've been looking into is printing metallic parts, or parts that look metallic, and there was a couple examples of that there. Protopasta, who I got a chance to, I talked to them online a lot, and I got a chance to meet up with a couple guys from Protopasta at Maker Faire New York, and they were there. And one of the really cool things I saw, they were showing off their metal finish materials, which is a mixture of plastic with some metal infused in it, so that you can get a really nice looking kind of copper finish that actually has metal in it. So you can do stuff like oxidize it and get a really cool unique patina. I definitely want to try something like that. I can think of a couple different cool applications that, you know, you could do with that. One being a 3D printed prop or replica that has a really nice rustic look. You know, you can do custom patinas and get it to really look like it does in the movie or game that you're trying to replicate. Also along those lines, something like a Fallout 4 build or something like that. It just has a really rusted out kind of wasteland look to it. So you can, you know, print out stuff in that material and just get a really cool look. You know, like Pit Boys or whatever it might be, you can get that wasteland look. So I definitely think it has some applications in 3D printing or in PC building and modding that I kind of want to look into. If you have any ideas about that, let me know. So definitely be on the lookout for some Protopasta videos coming up in the future. Another thing was a material that was actually kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. It was all mostly metal with a little bit of plastic in it, and they just put enough plastic in it to help it kind of flow and melt so that you can use a typical desktop 3D printer, FDM style 3D printer. But then you're able to, at the end, after the model is completed, break away any support and stuff like that, and then you can fire it in a kiln, and most of the plastic will actually burn away, and you're left with a mostly metal 3D printed part. So I know a lot of people who want to get that final metal part, and they have to do something like a lost wax type thing. But this is kind of like removing that extra step where you can just 3D print something and get a metal part, you know, directly at the end of it. Not just a metal finish, but an actual metal part. So I think each of those kind of have their own use. You know, if you're doing something like a prop, you might not want it to be super heavy, so having the Protopasta type metal infused would be good for that. But if you wanted something that was maybe for jewelry making, or you know, you just wanted something to be super heavy, if you wanted a real Maltese Falcon or something like that, and you wanted it to be heavy, then you could do it with that. So another cool material I kind of saw there was called Filablend, and it's a 3-color PLA filament. And I don't mean 3 colors as in it kind of blends between 3 colors, or it has 3 colors fused end to end. It's 3 in 1. It's like 3 color in 1 core. So you have a strand of filament, and in every single millimeter of that filament there are 3 colors. So when you print with it, all 3 of those colors come out all the time, and they were able to get some really cool and funky looking prints out of it. They did a lot of stuff like vases and some really interesting stuff. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out for them. I think they were more of a local kind of Midwest company, but they're looking to branch out more nationally, and I hope that they're able to kind of succeed with that. From talking with them a little bit, it seemed like their process is very, very complicated, so it's been hard for them to scale up to be able to sell whole spools nationally, but I really, really hope that they're able to do so. So definitely check them out as well. But then there were just a lot of large format 3D printers in general. gCreate, who I got a chance to meet Gordon and Anna in New York for New York Maker Faire. They were there and they brought their big GMax. It's just a huge 3D printer. It's like a good 3 feet wide, a good 3 feet or 2 feet tall. And they were printing out some really cool stuff like skateboard decks, like longboard decks, some interesting like 3D printed print in place fabrics, which have joints that make it kind of flow like an actual fabric. They had some huge vases, some huge like struss, bridging tests and stuff that they had done. A lot of really, really cool prints, and they're great people, and they make some really, really cool looking printers that have a lot of cool features. If you're looking for a large format printer like the GMax, definitely go check out gCreate. I'll have a link to their website below. So along with those large format 3D printers, there were also several impressively large 3D prints, some that didn't have much post-processing on them at all, and some that had a ton. Midnight Giant was there. He had the BFG from Doom, which is this big freaking gun. And I had seen this already briefly at New York Maker Faire, but it was nice to see it close up and see how big and heavy it actually was, and just see some of the stuff he had done for post-processing of stitching all the pieces together. I don't know how many kilograms of filament he ended up going through on that. I think he said it was upwards of like 70 or something like that. But yeah, he had done a really, really good job on processing that, and he had a lot of other 3D printed props and replicas there, and we chatted a little bit about what he did to finish them. Right next to him was Chaos Core Tech, and I've come across a lot of his stuff on Twitter, and it was nice to meet him and see some of his work in person. He had the very large scale Iron Giant, and I know a lot of people are fans of that movie. I watched it a lot when I was young and stuff like that, and he had reenacted a scene from the movie where the Iron Giant has to go up to kind of sacrifice himself. Spoiler alert. Yeah, I think he said that if it was standing tall, it'd be around 4 feet tall, but he had it kneeling down talking to Hogarth, and he actually had a model of Hogarth. And he has a video on the entire process of modeling, printing, and finishing that, so I'll try to link to that, and definitely go check him out. He and his wife do a lot of really, really cool stuff. She actually painted the Hogarth, and a lot of the other stuff that he does on the channel, she paints. So they're like a kind of a couple team that works on finishing prints together, which is really, really cool. Some of the other stuff there was so much to see, I don't want to forget anything. There was like a 3D printed Rubik's Cube solver, which I think Joe from 3D Maker Noob has made one of those as well. There was a lot of animatronic and robotic projects that people were 3D printed. There was a guy who had a Delta 3D printer backpack. He had like a mini Delta from CME-CNC, I think, and he had hooked it up to a backpack and wired it up so he could have batteries in a fanny pack, and he was just walking around 3D printing with it on his back, which is kind of showing, I think he said it was kind of impressive to see how far 3D printing had come, because like 8 years ago, people would have been there with 3D printers just trying to get them to work and trying to get them to print consistently, and now he can have one on his back and walk around in 3D print. That was really, really cool to see. And the last thing I got a chance to check out was this guy who was working on building a 4-way kind of Hot Wheels track that went around this kind of pegboard wall. And the idea was having a way to race Hot Wheels, because normally you just kind of like let them go and they're off and you can't control them, which is the case with his, but he had it hooked up so he had 4 identical tracks that were the exact same length, and he had 4 cars set up at the top, and then he had electronics which would have a starting light, like a not a NASCAR, but like a Formula 1 starting light, and you have 4 people there ready to press a button, and when the lights go green, you have to press the button which would release your car. And if it was basically a reaction time tester, but if you went too early, you got penalized and you would have a delayed release. And if you went, exactly on time, then your car would get released and you'd be racing down the track. I thought that was really, really cool. I love playing with Hot Wheels as a kid. I love cars in general. I love racing, and I love reaction time testing type stuff. That was a cool product. He also had basically what was a Lulzbot Taz 6, I think, 3D printer, but he had built it himself. He had sourced all the parts, and that was really, really awesome to see. I think he said it cost him around $1,000 to build it. A lot more in time, obviously. but Lulzbot is an open source company, and they put all their designs for their, you know, like mechanical designs, their CAD files, and all the different parts online. Their schematics, all their source code is all online. So he was able to download those, look up, you know, what parts he needed, get the metal extrusion, get the linear rods, get the linear bearings and all that kind of stuff, and build his own version of their printer. Their printer costs like $2,500. Of course, it comes with support and it's already manufactured and stuff like that, but he was able to build their printer for $1,000. And I think that speaks to the open source nature or kind of roots of 3D printing, and you know, the fact that these companies want to share what they're doing and have other people be able to build on it and stuff like that. And that was one of the really cool things I think I saw, was just a sense of community there. You know, every night things kind of people went back to the hotel and hung out, and Saturday night was like a big party where Google had paid for catering, so there was like tacos there and everybody was just talking. There were people playing Smash Brothers. I got a couple games of Project M in, and yeah, it was just really cool events. I enjoyed it a lot, and I encourage anybody thinking about it, or if you're into 3D printing or trying to get into 3D printing and you can get there, definitely go in the future. I guess it's time to talk about the swag I picked up and what you'll be able to possibly win and how you can win it. So first up is obviously this E3D bag, and inside of it is a MRRF t-shirt. Now, unfortunately, I had to pick a size, and the only size I could get of an extra t-shirt was a large. As you can see on the back, it's got all the sponsors. We've got a koozie from MatterHackers. We've got a hammer from Uncle Jesse. Clayton gave me this at New York Maker Faire, and I kind of want him to print out a bigger one for me, so I'm gonna give this away and make that an excuse for him to do that. We've of course got a MRRF sticker. We've got this little cell phone thing that DigiKey was giving out at New York Maker Faire. We've got an E3D online keychain, a MRRF keychain that a guy had printed out a bunch of these and was giving them away. I thought that was really cool, and thought you guys might appreciate that. MatterHackers stickers, Ono stickers, Google stickers, BuildTech, Protopasta, Filamentum, Maker Faire stickers and buttons. We've got Maker Faire stickers. We've got Magic Goo, 3 or 4 samples of Magic Goo, and I think that's about it. But I just wanted to kind of share my experience with you guys, and hopefully share something that some of you guys will appreciate, especially you 3D printing enthusiasts that might not have been able to get there. Hopefully this gives you a way to kind of, you know, get a little piece of it. I imagine you've been watching other people's coverage of it as well. So yeah, in order to enter, you need to go down to the description. There will be a gleam.io link down there. You follow that link, and it's just, you know, your typical Gleam.io giveaway. You have to follow me, subscribe to the channel, and then there'll be a bunch of bonus stuff that you can do to get extra entries. I don't expect this to be a particularly huge one, so your chances of winning this should be pretty good. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, finding out about my experience at MRRF. Hope you guys appreciate being able to, you know, win a chance to win some of this cool stuff. Got some cool videos coming in. I finally was able to get a hold of RAM. Prices have been really high, so I've got some 3D printing, or I've got some PC build videos coming up. I've got my gaming rig, and I was able to get RAM for my editing rig as well. So prices on graphics cards and RAM are coming down, thank God. So look forward to that content as well. Thank you guys again for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.